I'm Nathan, and I'll be your guide to this wonderful game we all love. Today, I'm using EDHTop16.com to compare high-performing decks at CEDH tournaments to those same commanders with no wins at those tournaments. I'll be looking at what makes up the core of the deck, as well as the swaps that separate the best of these decks from those that can't seem to get a win. Even if you don't play CEDH, I hope you'll find this insightful and can use some of what we find to improve your own deck building skills. First are the cards that comprise the innermost core that 90% of the good decks agreed on. The first ones you probably should include in your deck. The first thing I see is a robust mana acceleration package with these cards. Beyond traditional ramp though, we also have these rituals to give us shorter bursts of mana at the cost of cards that our commander can make up for easily. We're also running a powerful interaction suite to both protect our commander and remove those of our opponents. The main strategy though is burn, and these effects keep on the pressure, which also combines with our commander to accumulate a wealth of card access very easily. Eventually we'll draw into either of our win conditions, an Underworld Breach line with Wheel of Fortune or Jeska's Will, or combining Agatha's Soul Cauldron with a Walking Ballista in the graveyard. I do want to note an honorable mention here for Casey Jones, who, while not in the 90% of top decks I need to consider it core, also combos with Ob Nixilis in the same way that All Will Be One does, though cheaper as well as easier to find and reanimate than the enchantment is. This is definitely worth noting. Even better news is that many of those cards in our WinCon package can be used for card advantage before we're ready to win and still serve their original purpose. Lastly, we'll use these cards to search through the deck and enhance our consistency. So that's the core of the deck, at least winning versions of this deck, but I'm actually more interested in what the bad decks had to say. So many of the cards at the core of the good decks are also in the core of the bad decks. But there are a few cards the bad decks agreed on that the good decks agreed to cut. These are your cards to avoid. Praetor's Grasp is a great card in a lot of other Rakdos builds because it lets us steal a win con from an enemy deck that we can use for ourselves, typically a Thassa's Oracle. But the trick here is that you still have to pay the actual mana cost of the exiled card, colors and all, and we don't really have access to double blue pips, so it's not clear exactly how this helps us win, which may indicate why top decks cut this. Slaughter Pact and Fire Covenant are both removal spells with heavy resource costs for us that may not be worth the hit. Seething Song and Firebrand Archer are both accelerants in a way, but Seething Song actually overproduces mana for Ob, and at 3 mana is actually worse than our other ritual effects. But the Firebrand Archer is likely cut on account of its low toughness, making it extremely vulnerable to many incidental interaction pieces in the format, such as Orcish Bowmasters. Adnaz and Yawgmoth's Will both represent card advantage in one way or another, but both also require a substantial investment that is easily disrupted, which isn't very attractive if we're already so mana intensive on costs. What I'm next interested in are the cards that the good decks agreed on, but the bad decks missed. It seems as though many of the top decks went looking for an alternate win con in a Dualcaster Mage combo to run alongside their other win cons with these pieces. These decks also saw more utility out of their graveyard, using Entomb to sculpt it and Reanimate to wield it. Top decks also started leaning on Ruby Medallion and Strike It Rich to hold up more of the deck's mana accelerant goals. Strangely, we also see these decks playing more of Great Furnace, which I would attribute to either the grinding station that we see in some lists, or Beseech the Mirror to go find and cast a combo piece. Lastly, no-win decks largely missed out on running Gutshot as a free card draw or spot removal for those pesky 1/1s that we see in so many decks. So that's how this deck works in CEDH. I also want to shout out Boulevard, the channel that inspired this kind of video. They haven't posted in a few years, but if you liked this, you should go check them out. Lastly, a huge thanks to all of my wonderful patrons.